Did you know that Ian Fleming, the best-selling author of all the James Bond books, actually hated to write? In fact, he hated it so much that he gave away some of his best ideas for stories to other people just so that he wouldn't have to write them himself. In this video, I'm going to tell you why this is so relevant to us as musicians, and you'll get some ideas from it to make your practice even more consistent and effective. Now, when we see other musicians seemingly effortlessly reaching really high levels with what they do, it can be tempting sometimes to think we just don't have what it takes to do that. There they are, they find it so easy, and we're struggling and getting nowhere near them. But usually you don't see all the hard work that goes into things behind the scenes. It's that classic image of a swan gliding serenely across the water from what you can see above, but underneath those feet are paddling really hard to produce that illusion. And typically this is the same for everyone. Everyone has to work hard, and actually most people, even though they don't seem like it, they don't find it easy to do this. Don't believe me? Well, Ian Fleming was a great example of this. Although he was a massively successful writer, he actually hated writing. So the trick is not to get to a point where you're just so brilliant that you don't have to do the work. That just isn't true for anyone. The thing that you have to do is find a way so that you do the hard work that you need to get better. And there are basically two ways to do this. Now, the first is to find a way to make that hard work really enjoyable. Just find something in it that means actually what could be really challenging, difficult work is something that just becomes easy for me to do because I've found the joy in it. Now, I'm not going to talk about this today, but if you'd like me to say something more about that in the future, then let me know by just dropping a comment below. And you do still need to be careful with that approach, because it's not just enough to find it fun and do it without any focus or attention at all. You still need to be doing focused, deliberate practice. So you've got to find a way to have that enjoyment, but still be pretty intense about it. Now, the other way that you can go, though, is discipline. To find a way to make yourself do that hard stuff that is tough, that you want to kind of just disappear off and procrastinate and do something else. And what you probably don't realize is that actually this is what most of the great musicians, what most of the great artists, the great people in all areas of life have had to do for themselves as well. Very few people actually find it naturally enjoyable. A lot of them really have to force themselves to sit down and do the work. And that is hopefully a nice inspiration to you, but it also means that we've got great lessons we can learn from just how they managed to do this. So this brings us back to Ian Fleming, because there are some really interesting things about his story. The first that I mentioned a bit earlier is that he actually gave away some of his best short story ideas to Roald Dahl so that he wouldn't have to go through that painful, tortuous process of writing them himself. And these were not just random things that would never come to anything and nothing happened with them. They actually turned out to be some of Roald Dahl's best stories. So for me, that's fascinating in itself. This guy who we look at as great author, creator of James Bond, churning out all this amazing stuff, will go to unbelievable lengths to run away from actually doing the work. But how then did he actually put all those novels out there if he hated things so much? Well, he found ways to get that discipline for himself. And what he used to do was he used to create specifically a block where he was going to do nothing else but work on the book. And fair enough, that's a nice idea, but how do you stick to it? Well, he'd go to some pretty extreme lengths. he would book himself a hotel room for 2, maybe 3 weeks. And not just any hotel room, he would book a really dingy, rubbish room in a pretty poor, possibly even run-down hotel, so that the room itself was really not a nice place to be. And he would take very little with him, just the stuff that he needed to write and what he needed to sleep, wear, all that sort of stuff. So literally, when he's in the room, he's got 2 choices: do nothing or write. So that immediately puts him in that situation where the hard work becomes a much more viable choice, because the alternatives, frankly, even less fun. And because he's picked deliberately a really not very nice room to be in, there is that drive for him to want to finish the book as quickly as possible so he can get out of there and get back to a much more pleasant life. And it goes even further than that, because there's always still the temptation that he might say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to get out of the room, take a walk, go and, go to a restaurant, do whatever it is around town. So he would deliberately pick towns that had nothing going on, towns that he had no wish to visit. He knew no one there. There was nothing exciting happening. They were not nice places to walk around. Precisely, again, to make that other option, that escape option of just getting out and getting away from it all, really not very attractive. So here you have a guy who is a great writer but hates to do it, and he's finding a way to force himself to put all that work in, to do the practice. And take inspiration from this. There are many other great people out there, great musicians, who do not find it easy, who have to force themselves through it. So it's not just you if you find that sometimes. And even if you want to do it, but you find it difficult, you get distracted. Again, the greats had to battle with this. They weren't massive superhumans who somehow just didn't have to struggle with this stuff. And finally, think about the things that you can learn from the way that Ian Fleming actually did this. Okay, you're probably not going to go quite as far and take the exact things that he did, but it's all this stuff about, can you put yourself in a situation where you've carved out some time for this? You've made the alternatives really just not very attractive. So you get down to it, you do the work. Now, if you want the special practice and performance tips that I only share with subscribers, then head on over to playinthezone.com and sign up for the emails. They're free. I've been Mark Morley-Fletcher. Thanks so much for watching. Please click below to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And while you're down there, why not hit the share button as well to pass this video on to other musicians. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.